In October 1914, a single Belgian soldier plunged into the freezing Isère River, carrying a secret message that would either save his country or drown it. But this was not a standard dispatch. It was a royal command to trigger a catastrophic, man-made flood that would swallow the Belgian landscape. To understand how the fate of an entire nation rested on one shivering courier, we have to look at the terrifying speed of the German advance. The Kaiser's massive army had already swept through Brussels, crushing supposedly impregnable fortresses with giant siege howitzers. The tiny Belgian army was heavily outnumbered, exhausted, and pushed back to the very edge of their own territory. Behind them lay the North Sea, and in front of them was the relentless German war machine, threatening to seize the vital French Channel ports. King Albert I refused to surrender, setting up his temporary headquarters in the small, undefended town of Vernes. The king knew that if his lines at the Isère River broke, the entire Western Front would be outflanked, ending the war in a German victory. His generals desperately searched for a miracle, realizing that traditional weapons were no longer enough to stop the onslaught. That was when a local lockkeeper named Hendrik Gerardt suggested a radical, highly dangerous plan. He pointed out that the low-lying plains of the Isère region were actually below sea level, protected only by a complex system of sluice gates. If they opened these gates at high tide, they could unleash the power of the ocean to submerge the entire battlefield under feet of salt water. Neat. But the plan required absolute precision, because opening the wrong gates at the wrong time would flood their own defensive positions instead. Worse still, the critical sluice gates at Newport were located directly in no man's land, constantly swept by German machine gun fire. To coordinate this desperate maneuver, the king needed to send a written order to the engineers holding the locks. With all telephone wires cut by artillery and roads blocked by German patrols, a physical courier was the only option left. A young Belgian soldier stepped forward, volunteering to carry the message across the hostile, freezing landscape. The courier tucked the waterproof envelope containing the flood orders inside his thick woolen uniform. Under the cover of a pitch-black night, he slipped out of his trench and crept toward the banks of the Isère River. The river was wide, sluggish, and filled with floating debris from the heavy fighting upstream. As he approached the water's edge, German flares suddenly illuminated the night sky, casting a ghostly, white glow over the landscape. He froze, holding his breath as German searchlights began sweeping the dark surface of the river. Knowing that any movement would bring a hail of bullets, the courier slid silently into the bone-chilling, icy water. The cold was immediate and paralyzing, threatening to cramp his muscles before he could even reach midstream. He swam with slow, underwater breaststrokes, keeping only his nose and mouth above the surface to avoid detection. Just yards away, a German patrol walked along the riverbank, their voices carrying clearly over the quiet water. The courier drifted with the current, pretending to be nothing more than a piece of floating debris as the searchlight beam passed right over him. His limbs grew heavy and numb, and his lungs burned from the exertion of fighting the freezing current. But he knew that if he stopped, or if the water damaged the letter, the German army would march unchecked into France. Summoning his final reserves of strength, he finally dragged his numb body onto the muddy, opposite bank of the river. He lay there gasping for air, shivering violently as he checked his uniform to ensure the waterproof pouch was still secure. The courier then dragged himself through the Belgian lines, presenting the wet but intact orders to the waiting engineers. The engineers acted immediately, working under the cover of darkness alongside the lockkeeper Gerardt to prepare the gates. On the night of October 27th, they opened the hand-cranked sluice gates, allowing the incoming tide to surge inland. For 3 days, the rising sea water crept steadily across the landscape, turning dry fields into an impassable swamp. The advancing German infantry suddenly found themselves marching into a rising tide of freezing, waist-deep mud and salt water. Their heavy artillery pieces sank into the mire, and their rapid advance ground to a complete and muddy halt. The flooded Isère plain created an impenetrable barrier that the German army would never manage to cross during the entire war. This desperate swim did not just save a tiny corner of Belgium, It preserved the critical supply lines that kept the Allies in the war. Had those floodgates remained closed, the German army would have captured the French ports and likely won the war by winter. The courier's name remains lost to many history books, but his silent swim altered the course of global history. It serves as a stark reminder that in the face of industrial warfare, the courage of a single individual can still defeat the world's most powerful armies.